The oyster harvesters at Kamalo and fish processors in Old Joshua and Brufut recently took delivery of water, sanitation and hygiene facilities from officials of the water and sanitation component of the USAID Ba Nafa project. Uminja witnessed the handing ceremony spread over a 2-day period, and she now reports.
In their efforts to improve the health standards of the oyster women and people at the fish landing sites, the USAID Banafa project officially handed over water and sanitation facilities to the oyster women of Kamalo, fishing communities of Old Joshua and Burfoot. The Gambia-Senegal Fisheries Sustainable Project, locally called the Banafa project, has been rendering help to the fisheries sector since inception, and this time saw the need to help the people at these fish landing sites to access potable water and sanitary facilities.
The water and sanitation component of the project was incorporated to support the local oyster and fishing communities with the much needed water and sanitation facilities.
These WASH facilities came at a time when all these fish landing sites and the oyster women are constrained with sanitary facilities. With these WASH facilities, the beneficiaries would be in better condition before facing the public to sell.
This project will improve the livelihood of women oyster harvesters of the 4 communities, Old Joshua, Kamalo, Brufut, and Kato. It will also promote employment through the improvement of handling, processing, and commercialization of oyster products.
We're happy to be here today to commemorate this improvement in sanitation and hygiene at these fisheries landing sites. The communities of Kamalo and Old Jeshuan are going to change the statistic about diarrheal disease being the 3rd leading killer.
The Check the Affairs of the U.S. Embassy expressed gratitude to the Banafa project, outlining the importance of healthy drinking water alongside toilets, particularly to the fishing community.
One of the most important principles of the approach used to develop and implement the USAID Banafa WASH activities has been the principle of community ownership that you have shown us. We see that principle symbolized today as the facilities are handed over to the community. But it is not just about the physical facilities. The U.S. government is proud to support a participatory process led by the communities to identify issues, raise awareness, plan innovative solutions, and take ownership of improved hygiene at these sites and in your broader communities.
The Fisheries and Water Resources Minister lauded the Banafa project for the good gesture, noting that it is in line with the government Vision 2020 goal of ensuring a healthy citizenry.
The policy, legal and management framework for the fisheries in the Gambia is provided by the 2007 Fisheries Act and 2008 Fisheries Regulations. The policy objectives of the fisheries sector as articulated in the policy document includes rational and long-term utilization of the marine and inland fisheries resources, improving nutritional standards of the population, increasing employment opportunities in the sector.
Given that the items the beneficiaries sell are usually in high demand by the public, the need for them to operate in a clean and healthy environment cannot be overemphasized. And as they rejoice in this intervention, they were advised to use the WASH facilities for their intended purpose. Uminjai, Grts.
Civilians uprooted by the recent spate of fighting between Sudanese government troops and those loyal to his former vice president throng UN compounds, seeking shelter, and accusations and counter-accusations as civilians continue to bear the brunt of the seemingly endless mayhem in Syria. These stories plus the weather report when we return.
It's the grand one spectacular, mega explosive New Year's Eve banquet dinner and the grand dance salsa explosion night, featuring Le Grand Maestro Medun Jallo and the salsa giants of Africa, Africando. Celebrate New Year's Eve in grand style at the Coconut Residence Hotel, the paradise on earth. Maturity, sophistication, real ambience, with a selection of exquisite fusion dishes. Taste of Gambia, Nigeria, Morocco, and the Oriental. En vogue, avant-garde on the runway. See to believe. Spectacular fireworks display, art exhibition, grand raffle draw. Presented by Africa. Happy New Year. Powered by Africell under the Coconut Residence Hotel.
Welcome back. The United Nations has started evacuating non-essential staff from South Sudan and airlifting wounded civilians. This as thousands of people seek protection outside the World Bodies compound in Bor. China, meanwhile, has urged President Salva Kiir and his former vice president, turned rival, to settle their differences at the negotiating table. Fighting, as we hear in this CFI report, is raging in at least 2 areas.
Begun evacuating non-essential staff and wounded civilians from the town of Bor by helicopter. They are fleeing heavy fighting between loyalists of President Salva Kiir and supporters of former Vice President Riek Machar. They are all being taken to the capital, Juba. The Deputy Special Representative to the Secretary General of the United Nations is in charge of the evacuation operation.
I've just arrived on this chopper with 6 gunshot wounded, 2 serious, and 1 child with suspected meningitis. As I left our base and went to the airport in Bor, there was a lot of looting, a lot of gunshots, a lot of dead bodies.
Thousands of foreign and local civilians have been waiting outside the United Nations base in the town Bor. They are all seeking protection from the UN. They're hoping to leave the town that the rebels have taken. The situation is also very tense in Bentui, the regional capital of oil-rich Unity State. Bentui is also under the control of the rebels. The United Nations says that around 5,000 civilians have sought shelter and protection at the camp.
Our resources are stretched very, very tightly, but we are continuing to stand by the people of Unity State. The mission has a collective resolve to remain in South Sudan and will not be intimidated.
China has invested heavily in South Sudan and is watching the situation in the country very closely. Beijing is calling on Salva Kiir and his rival Riek Machar to settle their differences through national dialogue. China's call comes as the United States is considering taking new measures to ensure the security of American citizens in South Sudan.
Opposition groups say that hundreds of people in Syria have been killed after weeks of deadly air raids on the city of Aleppo. Speaking to CNN, doctors in Aleppo say there has been a massacre and hospitals are struggling to cope. Helicopters have been dropping drums filled with explosives. The Syrian news agency reports that the government says it's been targeting rebels-held areas. But the opposition groups say the air raids are killing civilians. Now they have fled the conflict to neighboring countries, but now Syrians living in refugee camps are enduring a harsh Middle East winter. Many Syrian children don't have warm clothes. Some don't even have shoes to wear. As CNN's Our Demon reports, this struggle has inspired a Lebanese woman to donate thousands of pairs of winter boots.
Children with no shoes in the bitter winter cold and mud that Hala Kablawi, a designer and mother of 3, couldn't get out of her mind for the last year. So she decided to do something about it, just as Lebanon was hit by a heavy storm.
You know, everybody's angry at the government, everybody's angry at the silence of everyone, everybody was thinking of the refugees. And seeing that anger, and I myself worried and angry, I launched it.
It worked. Hala, a Lebanese of Palestinian descent, raised her target of 2,000 winter boots in the first 24 hours, ending up with thousands more and counting. Amid the eagerly awaiting crowd, we're swarmed by a group of friends. 9-year-old Amina, proud of her skill.
She's going to show me how